Today's guest does the sports at Valley News Live. Joining me now, it is Beth Hoole. If you're around the Minot area, you see her all the time on the Bison football broadcast that we do on the Saturdays, and they win pretty much every single game. That has to be a lot of fun. And she's the sports director of Valley News Live, all this awesome stuff. Beth, really appreciate the time. Making this 4-hour away call. Really appreciate it. Tell me a little bit about just, even before getting out here to North Dakota, what was life like growing up? You're Naperville, Illinois, is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I'm from Naperville, so a suburb southwest-ish from Chicago. Probably about 45-minute drive if there's no traffic. I grew up in Naperville, born in California. My parents moved to Naperville when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and we've been there ever since. So, I grew up as Bill Hoole's little sister in the shadow of my big brother, and lots of sports. Parents were the coaches, were the Girl Scout troop leaders, were all of that kind of stuff, and just played a lot of sports. It's a really competitive area. Candace Parker's from my hometown. Sean Payton's from my hometown. So some good athletes that have made it big. And it's a lot of really competitive athletics. Like, you played club sports from a very young age. I joined my first traveling soccer team when I was probably 5th grade, and I was playing up a year. I played on some boys teams for a while in the club soccer, so, trying out for these teams, and then was Olympic development as well in my own playing career.
That's awesome. So I have a couple buddies that are from around Chicago too. So I was wondering, do you have a take on this? They kind of butt heads between their rivalries of Zion and Libertyville, or are you outside of that war zone?
I'm outside of that war zone. We were Aurora, Warrenville, Wheaton. That's kind of more my area. I'm much more south than they are. I dated a kid from Libertyville, though. Naperville gets called yuppies. That's kind of like the tag that Naperville is tagged with. Naperville is much more new money than your Libertyville area. They're old money. That Hinsdale stuff. Hinsdale Central High School is where the research was done for Mean Girls. Just based on true stories and interactions. That's Hinsdale. That's much more your Libertyville crowd. A lot of people hate Naperville. We're hated on quite a bit. And somehow those folks get out of all of that hate. But I think it's just they have their own little clique up there. I don't quite understand it. I just think people are jealous. It's fine. I'm fine.
So I should go onto the Mean Girls Wikipedia and type in growing up in Illinois, a pretty much accurate depiction. This is where Tina Fey did all her research.
That region, those Chicago suburbs are Mean Girls.
Perfect. So my little bit of research about the Illinois area, there's just a lot of green on the map, a lot of forest and nature type stuff around. I'm guessing where you grew up here. Is that what you already mentioned, Girl Scouts? That nature aspect, is that really stuck in with you? Because I saw you did a pretty big trip up to the beautiful Canadian wilderness. What was that like?
Yeah, I went up to Banff a couple years ago. Did Alaska. Been on some cool trips. Not so much though. My area is very suburban. There's bike trails and there's that kind of stuff. There's a beautiful arboretum, but we did scouts. But when I was in elementary school, I think it would have been summer going into 5th grade. There was a really big flood out by us. I was at Camp Dean. It was actually my first interaction with local news. We were trapped. I was at Girl Scout camp, and we got trapped in this flood, and nobody could get to us. And my mom staged this big rescue mission. She was actually, disowned by the Girl Scouts because she, spoke to the media about the danger that they were putting all of these young freshmen. And she found a farmer and made him drive his tractor across this, washed-out road. And they rescued us by helicopters flying over there, and that was kind of the end of my outdoorsy stretch as a kid. Athletic, but we weren't campers as a family, and that really lifted me in. I woke up in a flat bottom tent, floating down a river that wasn't there the day before. and had to be, like, rescued. And then, so that was my camping experience. I was done. I loved camp before that. That was it. From there on out, it was soccer camp and band camp, and that was it. And so, like, the whole outdoorsy thing, I figured I was up here. You never know how long you're going to be in an area in this business. And I thought, man, I'll never be closer to Banff than I am right now. I should go see this. Planned the trip with a couple of my friends. They backed out, didn't quite have the vacation time to be able to do the trip right. And I said, well, I'm still going to go. So I went by myself, and they were kind of offended. Lots of people were like, you should be terrified and be really careful up there. And I think my, like, naiveness kind of worked to my benefit. And I just went up and explored and did a whole bunch of hikes, met some random people, did hikes with people. I didn't camp while I was out there. I stayed in a hostel. So then I was able to meet some people. I thought a shower might be nice because I was going to be there for a full week. And then actually my parents lived in Alaska, and that's where my older sister was born. And so they took us back on a cruise up to Alaska, hit a whole bunch of spots so she could see where she was born. And I just benefit from all the family vacations they took me along with. So we got to hike in Alaska as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that, like, no part of North Dakota is quite, Chicago scale. But, I mean, you had to be just, I don't know if it was, like, reinvigorated or just refreshed to, like, step out and, like, maybe be not totally off the grid, but, I mean, just take a deep breath and see the sights, you know?
Yeah, it was nice to just get out on my own, just kind of explore some different stuff. You know, I went to school in Lincoln, Nebraska, and then moved up to Fargo. And my grandma mentions this all the time to me, that I am such a better person, more well-rounded, and honestly a kinder person from having gotten out of the Chicagoland area. There's still a lot of Chicago in me. You're going to get my opinion, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you don't like it, walk away. But I have a much softer edge, and I appreciate the outdoors and some of this different stuff because of that time and the kind of people that I've been around in Nebraska and in North Dakota. My boyfriend and I go camping pretty regularly now. Of course, we went camping in a blizzard in April a couple of years ago, which the ranger was very concerned about us. It was the dumbest thing we've ever done, but it's a memory, and we loved it. It was a ton of fun. And so it's just opened up a whole bunch of different activities for me that I maybe otherwise would have never really branched into if I had stayed in that Chicagoland area.
What is, like, either sports rooting interests or the most true Chicago-blooded take that you have, I guess, just in daily life? You hate ketchup on hot dogs, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a burning hatred for ketchup. I like it on other things, but it has no business on a hot dog. I like all pizzas, but deep dish is better, but you have to get the correct deep dish. And so I guess I would just say I have strong opinions. Like, just in general over everything. I don't know. I think I have transplanted myself elsewhere and gotten some more worldly opinions that I'm willing to accept more things. But food, I'm very opinionated on. I'd say that's probably, and the fact that the Chicago Blackhawks are a phenomenal organization and everybody else should just give up. We're rebuilding right now and we'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty big win over Edmonton this year at least. So you mentioned going to school in Lincoln. I'm sure you might be passionate on this. When are we ever going to hear about Nebraska football again for being good? And is Scott Frost the guy?
Honestly, no. I don't think Nebraska football is ever going to be good again. I don't have a lot of confidence there. I just think they've kind of lost touch. The problem with Nebraska is they live so much in the past. And I like Scott Frost. I get the hire. I was excited about it. I thought they finally picked somebody. I really liked Bo Pelini, though. Mm-hmm. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Again, I grew up with soccer coaches who told you were a piece of crap, and that was supposed to motivate you. So that, like, hard edge motivation has never been a problem for me. So I liked Bo. I thought he was doing a great job. I also worked in the athletic department when Bo was there. I was there for the transition from Callahan to Bo Pelini, and so I thought things were good. I get the stop processing, but honestly, I think if you're going to live in the past and you want to hire somebody who's going to bring back the glory days of Nebraska football, you have to go to the actual glory days of Nebraska football. And who's the one left for that? Well, you're looking at Craig Bohl. And so if you want to bring back somebody who's had success, who's built success, who's taken a program from near oblivion to success, who's still coaching, who's a CEO and can get the job done, who can recruit, who values a walk-on like Nebraska football did before Bill Callahan destroyed the walk-on program. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why they're not going Craig Bohl. I know there was a lot of things and a lot of people in Nebraska that remember when Craig was there. They didn't like some things that went on. But I think I would love to see that personally. I liked Craig Bohl. I liked working with him. I respected him. I liked the product that he built. I know the players that played underneath him at North Dakota State, and they have so much respect for him. And so if that's where you want to go, if you want to get back to that glory football, you have to go somewhere where they're playing that kind of football. You have to go to somebody who understands all of that and values that defense and can build that as well. And I think that's Craig Bohl. So if they want that success, bite the bullet and hire the man that you know can actually do it.
Yeah, it's like no matter what program it is, it's never going to be unanimous. Everybody likes what everybody's doing all the time.
No, but you have to be smart enough about it. And at the end of the day, the fact that Nebraska is missing out on players like this West Side quarterback that's coming to North Dakota State, like that's absurd. The fact that they missed on your Easton Sticks and your Nick DeLucas and your Kyle Emanuels, like there is no excuse for some of these players that have gotten out of Nebraska to get out of Nebraska, to let alone be going to an FCS school. And so for them, those are the kinds of players that would have sold their soul to play for Nebraska in the 90s. Those kids grew up, you bleed it in Nebraska. It's infectious. And these kids have no interest in that program anymore. And that's really sad.
So, like, now that you're in Fargo, are you like, hey, good to see you guys, great get for the Bison, but boy, what are the Cornhuskers doing?
It's been really funny. I've been in this industry for like 10 years now. My only remaining fandom, like true passion fandom, is for the Blackhawks. Like, I gave Alex Egan, my weekend anchor, I gave him days off while the Colorado Avalanche were playing in the Stanley Cup Finals because I believe you should be able to watch those games. That's where my fandom is. When it comes to all the rest of the sports and any other fandom that I grew up with or watching with my dad and my brother, that's all kind of gone to the wayside, including Nebraska football, especially in the last couple of years. It's just been so heartbreaking, and now I root for people I know. I'm going to watch the Eagles because I know Carson's a good guy, and I want to see him succeed. I'm going to watch the Ravens because, man, Chris Ford, like, watch out. That guy has a long career ahead of him. I'm tuning into these games to watch for the athletes that I have seen and am invested in because of the personal connections to them at this point. And that drives a lot more of, like, what I get passionate about and what I'm tuning into. And might take something.
All right, one more question for Nebraska to NDSU. So when Bo Pelini goes to Youngstown, did you ever get a chance in your FCS travels to be like, hey, thanks for all you did with Nebraska?
No, but I had some cool moments with Bo Pelini. He was obviously has no love lost with his experience with Nebraska. And so people said it's like not a good thing to bring up with him.
Okay.
He doesn't really, you won't get a great reaction with Bo Pelini, but in mentioning Nebraska. But sideline reporting, we were doing interviews with the opposing coaches, and I kind of started that. Like, I created a job for myself within the Bison football broadcast of doing the opposing team sideline interviews. And so then once Jamal left and I was doing the sidelines all by myself, I tried to keep that going. And when Bo came in for Youngstown, the first time we were playing them at NDSU, was Bo's first trip to NDSU, and I had asked the SID, the sports information director, if I could get an interview with Bo after halftime as they came back on the field, and he basically said, no, Bo won't do that. And so I walked up to Bo pregame and said, hey, my name's Beth Hoole. I'm the sideline reporter for the broadcast. It's going to be out on ESPN streaming sites as well. Just wanted to make sure I'm going to grab you coming out of the locker room at halftime. And he said, yeah, sure, sounds great. And he was great and gracious and gave an interview. And so you kind of picked up that, like, some of these young folks were a little bit, he had such a grandiose, perception in Youngstown, in his hometown, that people were kind of afraid of him and didn't ask him about things, and instead just, said no, he wouldn't ever do anything. Every time I asked Bo for an interview, or every time I asked him questions, he was gracious, he was kind, and he gave you the time. But I also was at the Youngstown game when he went ballistic, and the fans were leaning over the stands and threatening the police officers and threatening to run on the field. And that was an experience as well. I was standing next to some of the officials, and they were asking for the police to come out on the field and make sure that they had a safe escort away from that game. So I got to see both of those personalities really up close and personal from the Youngstown experience.
Yeah, I can always just imagine, the sports information staff, and they can know as much as they can, with what the coaches can be comfortable with. And sometimes you just you don't want to step on anyone's toes, but at the same time, our job is to get, the best content possible out there. And it was just kind of unique to hear, he was totally cool with it, and they didn't have that idea of it, or what?
Yeah, no, I don't blame them for just trying to protect them, not bother them. That's their job, is to protect their product. And if you know you have a coach who can be a hothead, who can be snippy, who can be rude, I don't blame you for wanting to maybe just take away any of those variables and protect the PR of the situation. That's literally their job. And so, but for me, yeah, I have to shoot my shot. I have to go and ask. The worst thing he's going to say is no. I never had a coach say no. I had Mark Harley from Northern Iowa run away from me, and I chased him down and asked my questions anyway. But, I never have had a coach say no in one of those sideline interviews. They know that they're tough. I know that they're not going to actually tell me anything. But you have to ask those questions, and you have to get those moments just for the fan, because it's the best insight we have into explaining the mindset as we come back on the field or go into the locker room at the halfway point in this game. It's the only opportunity you have to hear from these guys. And, Bo was great. He was gracious. I think he just went through the motions of it, but he was always very kind with it.
So NDSU football has been awesome for a very long time. Does it ever get old, going out and you're covering, all these blowouts, or is it just helpful knowing, I'm going to be in Frisco this week every single year?
Listen, man, I'm going to tell you, I came to town October 10th of 2010. That's the year that they turned their season around. That was the Eastern Washington loss. 2011, my first full football season here, they won the national championship. So I'm not saying I'm responsible for the turnaround, but I'm definitely responsible for the turnaround.
Obviously.
I've been here. They've been successful. I mean, it's facts. You can't deny them. But no, I mean, it's great. It's honestly more challenging than people think it is, because you have to find new ways to keep people engaged in caring, finding new story angles, new ways to, you can't just show up and do the same thing. That's why we went from a half-hour pregame show to an hour-long pregame show, added more people to it. You have to find new ways to continue to engage the viewer. So it's probably more work, because when something's wrong, you've got tons of questions to ask and stories that need explanations, and people want answers. When it's good, they're good. And so it's actually more challenging, because you're working to kind of find these nuggets, to dig these things out. Their story has been told by so many people. I'll never forget the first time they're on College Game Day, Tom Rinaldi, my absolute hero, does a story explaining the culture of Fargo. And everybody was like, what an amazing story. And I was like, but I can't tell that story because you all live here and you know the culture of Fargo and what it means to be a Bison football player. And so have really had to find those new ways, really focus on building those relationships, which has been outstanding for me as a reporter to continue to work to kind of flex some of those different muscles. And then, knowing from August to January that you're going to be busy, that you're going to have that schedule rolling, and that you have to be hard at work. I mean, it's nice to know because you just set in and there's no surprises. Your family's never concerned or worried about Christmas or Thanksgiving. They know you're at work. They know what you're doing, and not to bother you.
Mm-hmm. Did Tom Rinaldi kind of nail the culture in that story, or did he miss anything?
Oh, no, he crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. I actually ran into him in downtown Fargo, and I had like a total fangirl moment. I'm usually pretty calm and cool and collected. Like, I've met some famous people. I met Michael Jordan when I was a kid, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. Like, I grew up in sports around fans. My dad was a course pro, and so we grew up going to a ton of golf events. I've met Arnold Palmer. I've met all of them. Like, I've been there. Tom Rinaldi was my, like, freak out fangirl moment. Like, I screamed at him, and it was like, ah! And he turned and very graciously was like, "Hi, my name's Tom. It's nice to meet you." And I was like, "I'm Beth. I'm a huge fan. I love your storytelling." And he was like, "That's wonderful. Thank you. Ask me about me, what I do, how long I've been working, my back." I mean, he was so gracious. And I got a picture with him, and it was the absolute highlight of my time in Fargo, honestly. That was so cool.
That's fantastic. So, you at this point, you probably aren't going to like freak out over these guys, but tell me about just the rest of the broadcast crew on the set. What are they like, and how do you guys prepare and really have great chemistry together?
I mean, at this point, it's such second nature because we've all been working together so long. Brian Shawn has been a mentor and a leader for me in my career in Fargo the entire time. Like, he was the weekend sports anchor at Valley News Live when I started as a sports reporter, news photog at KVRR in town, at the Fox station in town. And he was always kind, always supportive. He taught me a lot about building relationships. Like, he would call me and give me a heads up that when he had left the industry, he was working for American Red Cross, and he had a couple of other different gigs before he got back in the industry and went to Midco. And he would call and tell me things, and I would just be like, "Brian, how do you know this? How do people tell you things?" And he taught me a lot about fostering relationships and building and gaining people's trust, and that was huge. He's had a huge impact on my career. And then LP is like my right-hand guy. He's my counterpart, obviously, in Bismarck as the sports director, and his endless amount of knowledge and support. It hasn't always been easy. Everybody wasn't super accepting of a female being on the broadcast in general, let alone then me becoming the sports director and being the sideline reporter. We've got in a lot of different comments, opinions, and mean statements over the years about a lot of different things about me. And LP has been steadfast and supportive and encouraging to me, and the fact that I am just as capable, if not more, as any of my predecessors. And, we've gotten to go and cover the draft together and, going to Frisco every year, and his constant support. LP knows everything, and he talks to everybody, and he's got this insane encyclopedia of knowledge. Bichon's a great, research guy, studies it, finds all the little interesting nuggets. LP's going to get the personal stories and anecdotes from people in these conversations. And they're both always just so generous with a lot of that knowledge, and most importantly, how they go about building those relationships and getting those things to help somebody out who's young and new to the area, because they've just had those connections forever. Ryan Gellner is somebody that I personally wanted in the broadcast. After KFGO lost the radio side and it went to Bison 1660, Ryan Gellner was a free agent. He had been working for KFGO for years. And so I just knew his past in working in TV, the viewers, the listeners really liked him on the radio side, and I just thought he was a perfect person to be able to bring in and add a fresh perspective, again, a great deal of knowledge in the area, He connects really well to the athletes, and so he's been absolutely phenomenal. And him and I really think on the same wavelength of where we want the pregame show to go, or the pacing of it, or adding in some of these different, unique, just different segments to the show to just kind of spice it up a little bit different. And so that's been really great to have somebody to bounce those ideas off that, you kind of think speaks the same language as you. Alex Deacon is obviously my weekend anchor. We work incredibly well together. He's an absolute workhorse. And I think the biggest thing about Alex and my side of the broadcast is so much of it is behind the scenes. Every single day, Sunday through Saturday morning at 8 a.m., we're doing so much of the behind-the-scenes stuff in terms of producing it, making sure everybody knows where we're going to be, talking to the crew in the truck about what shot we want, getting the videos put together, cutting all of this, anything you see video-wise for the show. And so that's kind of way more of our job than anything you actually see on TV. And so that's really cool. And then, and he's also, talks me off the ledge when I get a comment to get back in the kitchen or go make me a sandwich. He's the one who hears my rant so that I can be calm later. And so he's a very good guiding, steady horse for me. And then obviously we brought in Kyle Emanuel, and that was so fun to have. He reached out that he was going to be around. I've known Kyle. He's, I'm just a couple years older than him from when he played at NDSU. Okay, I'm a few years older than him. But knew him really well, obviously, the whole time he played. Had kind of that connection to him from having gone to Nebraska, so talked to him a lot through that. But that Cole Jurek, Kyle Emanuel, all of those guys, that group of Bison football players are guys that I'm now good friends with. And so to be able to bring him in, I just think he instantly clicked. You never know with a former athlete that's never done any broadcast work how it's going to quite click. And Kyle, all of us will never forget that Target Field game. We all went, here goes nothing. And, opened the mics and the lights came on and I said something, Alex said something, and Kyle jumped in and kind of interrupted and interjected. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I've been wanting, is that natural conversation, give and take, cut in, cut away, disagree, share a reason why, and Kyle just fit in so perfectly there.
Kyle's like the Tony Romo, just bursting onto the scene of these Bison broadcasts, or what?
He really was, absolutely. I mean, when I explained to him what we were going to do at halftime and that, I was going to tell you what happened, I needed him to quickly tell me, that's a good dance. That takes a little bit, that takes some practice to really find your vibe on that. We never practiced it. The first time he did it was that first game at Target Field. They had told us we were going to be looking at one monitor. It was actually routed into a different monitor. We didn't get to see the highlights before we did them, and he was flawless. I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. You're taking my job.
Oh man, that's awesome. So most of that group is actually our NBC North Dakota crew as well, and I think we work together swapping highlights throughout the season, not even just the Bison stuff. So I think it's been a good team effort here so far. And also to Ryan, he was up at KMOT for a while. He asked me about our longtime tech director Annie and how she was doing and stuff, and he actually helped me talk to Marnie about the Twins season for this. That was just on this radio show. It was nothing for the news, so I just really appreciate that kind of effort. Wanted to ask you quick, just when you get those kind of tough girl comments or whatever, did it ever get to you, or were you able to just be like, these people are stupid, I'm tough from Chicago?
I'm a very emotional person, and so absolutely, I would say probably I had ebbs and flows where I would be and it kind of depends on the comments and how it's coming at you, whether or not, there's points of it that fit in your insecurities, and so you're kind of, when people comment on your weight or want to tear apart what you're wearing, you're like, are you kidding me? Does anybody ever show up to you? Would you ever walk up to a stranger at the grocery store and be like, that's a terrible color on you? Mm-hmm. No, you wouldn't. So, why do you feel okay saying it to me? When people would comment on my weight and, the fluctuation there, it's yeah, I'm human, and you have no idea what's going on in my personal life and what's happening. So, back off. And so those things were really hurtful. A lot of comments then about, like the get back in the kitchen, go make me a sandwich. I wanted to come out on set and make a sandwich for Alex. And he was like, that makes me look bad. You can't do that. And I was like, it'll be so funny. It's like, stop it, Beth. Those kinds of comments, those roll a whole lot easier off of my shoulders. But what I realized I was doing was I was always trying to prove to people that I knew what I was talking about. And so I would ask these questions where I would tell you how much I know and then ask you something. So my questions would be really long, and then people would have no idea what my actual question was because I was taking too much time trying to prove to you that I'm asking this question for a good reason. And so that really held me back. Or when I was doing highlights on the news, I was trying too hard to impress you with stats and figures and numbers and analysis instead of just giving the highlights and having fun, which is what people are there for. And so I worked so hard to try and prove stuff. About 4 years ago, I finally kind of had this moment, and I don't totally know where it came from. My boyfriend's always been really supportive. He's not a sports fan at all, and he doesn't understand why you would ever care what anybody thinks about you. That is not. He's a mechanical engineer. He doesn't get why you care or why you even interact with people. And so he's always been really good about, it doesn't matter as long as you are happy with your product and your bosses are, it doesn't matter. And he's been a great support in that. But probably about 4 years ago, I stopped trying to impress people and just tried to have fun. And I noticed that was a huge difference. The emails started rolling in of people saying, oh my gosh, you've grown so much. You're so much fun to watch. It's great to see you having come into your own. And I was like, this is who I've always been. This is what I sound like talking to my dad 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning on the phone recapping a game from the night before. But I never let that natural personality, energy, and my natural insight on the game come out. And once I did that, I think what the big thing was people picked up on me being genuine, and then they liked me. And you can't fault anybody for that, for embracing somebody in their genuine nature. That, people can tell when you're being fake, and they don't like it. It rubs people the wrong way. And so I don't blame people for not liking me or for thinking I was rough or awkward or feeling uncomfortable when I was doing something, because I was trying so hard to impress them that I wasn't me, and I don't blame them for not liking me when I wasn't even myself.
Yeah, good job just handling all that crap. I mean, I know it hasn't really come up as much just on my end or whatever, just because I don't have as much of the stuff that would probably have to deal with, just given your position, It's because all I get is I'll get an anonymous letter every now and again, or if somebody thinks I'm driving the station vehicle too fast and I have to go get gas and they stop off, then they tell me that because they know I can't say anything back. And hey, if that keeps them comfortable, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been here about a decade or so.
Yeah.
Obviously taking credit for this huge turnaround. What's the best Bison team that's been on the field since you've been working here?
I think that 2014 team was so good. Their defense was just unstoppable. I know they had a loss that season, but I just think that they were, that was your Colton Heagle, Kyle Emanuel, Brad Ambrosius, Nate Tanguay was in there. You had Tuska, the older Tuska as a baby Tuska at the time. They were just so good. That was the beginning of Chris Ford was in that group. MJ Stump was a senior. Just so many strong talents and guys that not just led the Bison in their time, but left such an undeniable impact on the program to come. That was Carson's first year as a starter. You had, R.J. Erzendowski. You had a young Darius Shepard. You had John Crockett. You had just so many weapons and tools. Joe Henry was on the team at the time. Just so many guys that team has always really stood out to me personally. That's a year I remember never doubting the team going in. Sometimes there's always like I felt like at practice, if there was going to be a loss, this would be the week. I never felt that with that crew. But at the same time, going into, like, looking back, because I talk to the guys about this pretty regularly, I think that 2018 team was just as dangerous. I think Easton was undeniably outstanding that year. I think that Easton Stick always got a bad rap. I think people were harder on him than he deserved. I think he was more successful than Carson was. He's now the winningest quarterback in FCS football history, took that title from Brock Jensen. But I always felt like people ragged on Easton for things that I thought he was doing a great job and really impressive. And then you just look at all the, that was Darius, that was RJ again. You look at the tight ends at that time, the running backs, they just kind of rotated through everybody. And then beyond that, you look at the defensive side of the ball, and James Hendricks. You said right there, Robbie Grimsley, those kinds of guys were just undeniable impact on this program, and those kinds of players that could play anywhere and do anything. And that's the kind of stuff that makes for a really impressive and dynamic football team. And then, of course, Tepka and all those guys as well. Now Derek Tepka, Stanley Jones, Greg Menard. Again, just an undeniable group.
Yeah, and Easton Stick, I don't think it was that year, but he was the dude that gave all the Bison should be in the FBS crowd the credence of beating Iowa. He's been doing great. Here's another question for you. It might be difficult. Are you taking Carson Wentz or Trey Lance as Trey's getting ready to be drafted in the first round?
First of all, I think Carson has been treated really unfairly in all of this. Yeah. I think Carson Wentz is a great football player. I think Carson does too much. And when you put Carson in a situation with not enough tools around him, he's going to try and save the day. And that's what you've seen. If Carson had one option, it would be a different situation. But he has no offensive line. 50 sacks. That's insane. And so, of course, he's going to not be as accurate. He's seeing shadows and hearing footsteps. Like, the guy is taking a beating. And so I think the whole Carson Wentz thing right now is really unfair. I hope for his sake he can get to Indianapolis, reunite with Frank Reich, and they can go win a couple of Super Bowls, because I think that's where the magic is. I think that's the relationship. That's the Randy Hedberg to your Carson Wentz. Frank is who Carson needs to be with for long, sustainable success. I think Trey Lance is spectacular. I will never forget his redshirt year. They put him in garbage time, and he lit it up. I remember people were going bonkers saying, why isn't he our starting quarterback? But you had Easton, who was phenomenal, and people already wanted Trey Lance in there after one showing in a quarter in garbage time in a blowout, which he absolutely deserved. He's always been spectacular. Trey Lance is extra smart. He's just kind of next level in all of that. I wish he had more time in college football. I wish they had this fall season. Also, selfishly, just to be able to watch him play another season right here at home. Mm-hmm. I also am a big fan of his parents, and so which I'm glad his brother committed, because now I still get to see the Lances in town every once in a while. I think Trey Lance could have a very successful career. Always my concern about quarterbacks in the draft, which I've learned in these 10 years of obviously following guys to the NFL, it's just such a tough transition for a quarterback, because you're going to be drafted by a team that needs you to play right away. They probably also don't have a lot of tools around you. And can you strike gold like Carson did early, outside of obviously getting injured, but winning a Super Bowl that early? Or are you doomed for the longevity and then constantly battling and trying to figure out your situation? The whole Aaron Rodgers situation, as salty as he was about going late, it did wonders for his career to sit, mature, learn in the NFL, to then make his debut. And I know that's not what anybody wants to do, but there's a big difference between a 22-year-old kid and a 28-year-old man in the NFL. And there's a big difference between those defensive linemen coming at you and you're 22 years old. And Trey Lance he is solid, he is strong, he is big. 22 years old, you're still a kid. Now, I'm saying that, at 32. So, but, that's a kid. That's a big difference. You mature a lot as a young man from 18 to 24, 25. You mature even more once you get just a little bit older, just in how you're, how you can respond to some of this stuff.
Yeah, and a guy like Aaron Rodgers, he's kind of motivated yet again thanks to the late first round. Now they got his heir apparent in the quarterback room, so that's pretty crazy. To your point about Indianapolis, I'm an Eagles fan. I talk with the guys back home all the time, and just being fans of the team and seeing like where the offense has gone. We've given Frank Reich plenty of credit. We think he might still be the genius that was really behind everything and stuff. So, yeah.
I knew you were smart, Ben.
Yeah. Appreciate it. So, speaking of when they were actually able to win the Super Bowl, that was a big spot where you were able to be at. I was lucky enough to go there too. Tell me a little bit about just all the different non-NDSU stuff that you've been able to do, even though we're in Fargo.
Yeah, so I went out. Well, I got to go to the NFL Combine when Carson was out there and Joe was out there. So I was in Indianapolis for that, and just witnessing that and how totally different that was. That was a really cool experience. Also just got to meet and make so many connections in terms of just people that are helpful in how you frame questions or write things, or just, it was a really cool, personally professional, it was almost like going to, some kind of conference in terms of getting to meet people and learn from people. So that was really cool in and of itself, and everybody's there. And then I got to go cover the draft because I was in Chicago, so that was extra fun. And then I got to cover Carson at Monday Night Football, his first Monday Night Football debut. It was in Chicago against the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football, and that was really fun. That was like a career moment for me. Everybody was trying to get him to make a comment about after the game about his Monday Night Football debut, and he just wouldn't bite. And then I asked him, and I got him to laugh, smile, and finally reflect on this was something you grew up watching as a kid, and this was the moment, and it was really cool. And that was all the Philly reporters were like, "Thank you, Beth, we appreciate it." So that was a big career moment for me. But yeah, I went to Eagles training camp, which I'd done Vikings training camp so many times, but going and doing it somewhere else in a different city, around different reporters, Minneapolis reporters sort of kind of become your friends because you covered and are in Minneapolis so much for things. But that was a really cool experience. Obviously got to do the Super Bowl, and that was fun. We were down there the entire week and covered all of that. I did the White House. I was supposed to go to the White House again, but that obviously got canceled because of COVID, and that was super cool. I'm a big political nerd, love U.S. history. Actually was in a political science honors student at Nebraska. And so that was, being a political reporter was at one point like a inkling of a thought of the direction I would go. And so that was really cool to stand on the White House lawn and give a report from the green tent. That was really cool. I've done NCAA men's basketball tournament, which obviously has been with NDSU or UND, but got to do the Final Four, which was really fun, and got to tell some different stories because it wasn't our local teams. It was more about the experience in the moment, and that was a really cool experience. I think those are it. There's been a lot of really cool stuff, though. Fargo has been, when you tell people you work in Fargo, North Dakota, they ask you, what do you cover? I remember when I was moving up here 10 years ago, people went, what are you going to cover, ice fishing? And I was like, no.
That's what they were asking me. So.
Yeah, and at the time it was, North Dakota hockey. I always knew about North Dakota hockey because of Jonathan Taves. And so I came up, there was this FCS football, but I didn't know what's FCS football. Illinois State, kids who go to Illinois State, but it's Illini or it's, Northwestern. a lot of Iowa, Wisconsin. It's Big Ten country in Illinois. Nebraska, obviously, we were Big 12 then, and so I didn't really know anything about FCS football. It was all UND hockey. And then, obviously, that, first year took this right turn, and here I was getting to cover UND hockey winning national championships and being great, as well as NDSU football.
Yeah, when I got here, UND won the national championship right away in hockey. And I just thought, watching March Madness in the Final Four, I like it because, yes, it's a huge event, but it also has, that local tournament feel if I'm covering, the district tournament. And obviously not now where it's everybody has to have, the host seed hosting to stay away from each other and whatnot. But you have, one game after another. One team's waiting to take their warm-up. They're coming out of the tunnel watching, the game before it. I thought it was really cool. And you touched a little bit on UND's success. I know we've done a lot of Fargo talk, but you're in Eastern Dakota, straight shot up to Grand Forks. Anything else stick out to you when it comes to, do you get to mention the Fighting Hawks at all in your coverage, or how does that kind of work?
Oh, absolutely. Obviously, we're home for Bison football, so that's, NDSU athletics is my top priority. That's a huge grip here in terms of the fan base within the region that I cover, but there's a huge North Dakota population as well. And so we absolutely, if UND hockey is playing, once football season is over and it's, Friday night and UND's in a Friday-Saturday series, UND hockey is our league. Absolutely. That's the story of the day. And obviously tonight with UND hockey and NDSU men's basketball, it's NDSU versus SDSU. If UND men's basketball is playing USC, we've got a ton going on tonight, and all of that is of utmost priority. I'm going to get extra time tonight to talk about these things that are going on because that's a huge part of it. My early career, until I became sports director in 2015, I beat with UND. And so the entire time I was at Fox, the first 3 years at Valley News Live, I was driving up to Grand Forks 4 to 5 times a week because that's what I covered. I was the UND hockey beat. I owned that beat. I traveled with the hockey team for NCAA hockey tournaments and regionals, and so that's a huge priority. I think you're really doing a disservice if you ignore that just because it's maybe a little bit more inconvenient. And those UND folks are great to work with. They know that it's a little bit further away. They're accommodating, incredibly helpful. Those are some of the best friends I've made here, is some of those folks, because I spent so much time with there. I was up there for the NCAA selection show for UND women's basketball when they went to the NCAA tournament. And we were at the ground round, and this older gentleman came up to me, and he said, "I see you in your car up here every day. You should really just buy an apartment up here." I was like, "You're not wrong, sir. I agree. But I get free meals every time I come up. So I'm going to just keep driving up here."
There we go. That's the spirit. So obviously we've done a lot of great sports experience talk today. You mentioned your boyfriend doesn't care at all about sports. And I think that might be a good work to outside of work balance for you. Just to wrap this up, you've been here for a decade. You've gotten a lot of experience. This can be a mobile industry. What makes Fargo a special place for you to have your life right now, Beth?
When you look at other opportunities, and I've talked to people and I've applied for stuff over the years, absolutely. You have to keep options open and be looking at things. But at the end of the day, some of those offers that have come in, it's like, am I really going to leave this community that has embraced me, that I feel at home with, to go and cover something maybe not as exciting, that doesn't travel as much, that doesn't give you these opportunities? When you list all the places that I have been and all of the things I've gotten to cover, it's tough to compare that to some of this other stuff and what you would be doing. And so it's just the opportunities. I've really endeared Fargo. The people of North Dakota have been wonderful, and it's just really become home. It's fun, and there's still challenges. Like I said, every year to find those news stories, to continue to make people care as much now as they did in 2012, 2011, when it was new and fresh for the Bison to be winning FCS championships. Those are all still great challenges professionally.
Awesome. And hey, just keep doing what you're doing. A lot of people love what you're doing, Beth, and just appreciate you taking the time for this. This has been great. Thanks.
Yep, and we appreciate you. You give us so much great work on the other side of the state. We could not do what we do without you. You've contributed so much for the coaches show and done some great stories for that kind of stuff. We can't do it without you. It's a team effort.
All right.
I get a lot of the praise, and I don't deserve all of it. And, it gets done and it thrives because of the hard work that you contribute as well.
It's very kind. Appreciate it. That's Beth Hoole, Valley News Live and Bison Football TV.